right, I think most people are here, so I think we'll get started. Get started with a few words on One Planet Abingdon. So we are organizing this this event tonight. We are a community hub in the center of Abingdon. We are run entirely by volunteers. We opened a little bit over 6 months ago, and we've been running events from our Climate Emergency Center, which is just below the County Hall Museum in the County Hall building in the center of Abingdon. So what we do, we want Abingdon to embrace one planet living. One planet living is a framework that was designed by Bioregional, which basically means living within the Earth's resources. So at the minute, we're living as if we had free Earths available to us. We're obviously using a lot of resources that might run out at some point. Or this is the focus of the Climate Emergency Center. We want this framework to be known by people and to implement it in our everyday lives. So as you can see, there are 10 principles. You can have a look on our website. We've got more details on that. What we do in the Climate Emergency Center, while we serve cakes and coffees with our volunteers who basically run the whole place. We've got displays on sustainability. We've got lots of events, like I said. Have a look on our website. We've got talks such as this one. We've got repair cafes, clothes mending, bike checks once a month. We also have an eco-library you're welcome to use. We recycle medicine blister packs. Well, we have a lot going on, and hopefully there will be even more in the months to come. You can find us on our website, oneplanetabingdon.org. We're also on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we have a YouTube channel, and you can find recorded talks on that channel, and you will be able to find tonight's talk there as well once it's uploaded. So this is One Planet Abingdon. Do have a look at the website if you want to know more. Now I'll just introduce our speaker for tonight. So David. David has been living in Abingdon for over 40 years. He is a founder member of Save the Radley Lakes, and he's on the board of trustees for the Radley Lakes Trust. He is also chairman of the Abingdon Naturalists Society, and big thanks to him for doing this talk tonight. And I will stop talking now and let him do the talking.
Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen. Is that can everybody see?
Yes, that looks good.
Screen. Okay, thanks. Yes, I'm not actually chairman of Abingdon Naturalists. I'm a chairman of conservation, not.
Sorry, I promoted you.
Anyway, okay. Well, thank you for inviting me this evening, and thank you everyone for joining us. I want to say a little bit about this wonderful site which we've got so close to us. And in fact, my first slide is from they didn't have digital cameras in those days, so it was painted from Lockwood, which overlooks Radley, and you can see Abingdon in the distance and the steeple of St Helens Church. But the important point is the land in the middle distance, which is the Radley Lakes area, and it is just meadows at that time. We'll see later how it has developed over time. So this is the outline of the talk. I'll go through some maps and described habitats, and also the Radley Lakes Trust master plan. Then I will describe some of the areas in Radley Lakes. The big thing about Radley Lakes area is that it is so diverse. You know, the habitats are so diverse. So I've tried to choose some different habitats there. And then I'll just, I think we'll break for 10 minutes after Thrupp Lake, and then I'll go on to talk about you know, some highlights, you know, important iconic species that we have, and also then talk about the future. So the history, this is a map of Radley Lakes. I'm not sure if I've missed a slide. No. Okay. So up till, I mean, you can look at the Monk's map in the Abbey buildings, and you'll see that it was mostly pasture in the 16th century, and it's still mainly was up to before the 1950s, it was still mainly pasture. But after the 1950s, they started digging for gravel in the area, and that went on right up on both sides of the railway line. This is the Oxford Didcot railway line, and they started on the east side and then moved over and started digging on the west side. And then in the 1990s, they Didcot Power Station built a pipeline and pumped fly ash slurry into the pits. So they filled virtually, yes, all of the pits east of the railway line. And then they started filling the pits to the west of the railway line. So this Radley Lakes is a local wildlife site. It was given this status in 2006, basically as a result of the Save Radley Lakes campaign. And the wildlife site is outlined in red, and you can see it here. It extends right from the Abbey, the mill stream here, through Barton Fields, right across the railway line to the east. But the area I'll be talking about this evening is the area west of the Didcot Oxford line. So I've mapped out just to show the diversity of the habitats. You can see obviously blue is water bodies, lakes and ponds and so forth. Green is basically grassland. Olive green is fen and marshland. This orange is reed beds, and the pink is wet woodland, and the purple is our plantations. And this gives you an idea of the extent, the area of each type. So we've got roughly 23 hectares of water bodies, about 15 of fen and reed bed, 16 of wet woodland, and so forth. So the total area west of the railway line is about 134 hectares. So just say a bit about the Radley Lakes master plan, which Richard talked about in a previous talk. But so the Trust wants to set a vision for the lakes, focusing on protection of wildlife and providing green spaces for local people. The major part of the funding will come from CIL receipts. That's receipts that Radley Parish Council receive from developers, both in Radley and some of the areas that are being developed in Abingdon. So I've been asked to help with this, basically to define and map the distinct wildlife habitats, to collate records of the flora and fauna, and to identify important species and the areas which they inhabit, and to define present management, if any, and also just suggest future management tasks which will maintain and enhance biodiversity. So the first area I'm going to look at is in the far west, and you probably know of it. It's an area of wet woodlands, which we call the Willow Car, and it's just north of the Abbey Stream. So this is the Abbey Stream, and this is the Willow Car area. And the important point is that the Abbey Stream, links with the river above the loch. So it has a high water, the water level is high, and that means that the water table in the Willow Car is high as well. So you've got high humidity, and it's a good area for fungi. And it's an undisturbed area, very few people, except our green team, go in there. Lots of willows, most of them in a state of decay, and there's lots of fallen timber, more rotting willows here. So you can see it's a very good area for fungi. And here's the Fungus Survey of Oxfordshire looking for fungi. This was a few years ago. And so the sort of fungi we find in here, this is one called the fragrant bracket, and it has a faint smell of aniseed, and it's quite a rare fungus. And we actually sent a sample to Kew, and they did a DNA analysis, so we're pretty sure of the identity of this one. Not all fungi are easy to identify. This is another bracket fungus called the artist's fungus, and usually it's just a flat white undersurface. But in this case, this little fly here, this little golden fly, laid its eggs on the undersurface, and the fungus reacted to form these galls, and so which was very good for the fly larvae, because they could feed on the fungus inside these galls. So I don't think the fungus benefits much from this relationship, but the little fly obviously does. Another one which we find in there is the scarlet elf cup, and that doesn't appear till late winter, so you miss it in fungus forays that take place in the autumn. And another one here is the sheathed wood tuft, lovely orange color. It loves decaying wood, so this one was actually growing on a pile of logs that were happily decaying away. And there's a few others. There's this one, called purple jelly disc, and this oysterling, which is one that grows on. It's quite a small one. It grows on twigs lying on the ground. So that's the willow car. I'll move on to the next site, which is Barton Fields, and this is very close to my heart because it's the site where the Abingdon Naturalists green team work. It's a long site, and it's got dry grassland on the northern edge, and it's got tall herb fen in the lower part. So it's owned by the Vale District Council, and it's 7 hectares in area. And as I said, it's looked after by the Barton Fields Green Team. And it was designated as a Jubilee Wildlife Site in 2003. And that's when the Green Team started work. And it was designated a local wildlife site in 2006. And just recently, Thames Valley Environmental Records Centre and the local wildlife trust surveyed the site and reported that it was in excellent condition, which we're very pleased about. So I just want to go back in time a bit. If we go back a century, this is an aerial photograph of the area. This is Abingdon Lock. And obviously this is the River Thames. And Barton Fields is this area here. But you'll notice there's no riverside wood. There's no wood along the northern edge. I think the branch railway line ran through here along this. But also this area, which is now Bruni Lagoon, was also treeless. Move forward 50 years to 1970, and this is Barton Fields, this area here. We've got now a nice riverside wood. The railway line still runs through, and we've got these hedges which can be seen in the Monk's map. So they go back a long time. They're quite ancient. And move along again to another 50 years to 2020, and we've got this photograph as a this photograph of the Barton Fields again. The riverside wood is still there. We've now got a plantation on the north side, and some of the field area has scrubbed over. And at that time, our green team were engaged with mowing the area, so you can see the mown area. So Green Team have done quite a lot of enhancements to the flora and fauna. We've made sure that the grassland is mowed each year in late summer, and the hay is raked off, and this improves floral diversity because you're taking away the nutrients, and wildflowers don't want high nutrition levels. We've introduced a wide variety of native plant species over the time that we've been looking after. So that's 19 years now we've been looking after that site. In that time, in 2008 and 2009, we got some lottery funding, and we created a wildflower meadow, which was about 3,000 square meters in area. And with the same funding, we created some ponds. And we've since created, the Freshwater Habitats Trust have created a pond for us in 2013. We also have made a cornfield annuals plot. I'll say more about that later, but it's roughly 150 square meters, and it's a long plot beside the Sustrans track. And recently we've been working on a floodplain meadow, which is now about 600 square meters in area. We've planted a lot of wetland species there. Also, we've introduced a new reptile, the slow worm. We were given 16 slow worms by 2 different society members, and they've been introduced into the scrubby grassland. So this shows a map. This is the wildflower meadow. This is the cornfield annuals plot. This area here is quite dry. It's slightly elevated above the rest of Barton Fields. The part near the Thames is a fen area, and it has the water table is quite close to the surface, and this is where we've created this floodplain meadow, and we've also got 6 ponds in this area. Oops. So this is the wildflower meadow in spring. We've in the last 6 or 7 years, we've had orchids come into that area, and you see in early spring we've got ragged robin and buttercups flowering there, but we've got a wide range of perennial flowering plants in there. This is the cornfield annual plot. We rotivate it every year, and that is to remove grasses, because these cornfield annuals won't compete with grasses, and we re-sow it every year. But it's quite a small plot, and that's about as much as 150 square meters is about as much as we can manage. But as you see, we've got these annual daisies, we've got poppies, cornflowers, and corn marigolds. The corn marigolds and cornflowers come later in the year. So the floodplain meadow that we're working on, we've planted snake's head fritillary there. We actually spent, I think, or my colleagues spent 2 winters clearing the area, because it's quite dense herbage in that area, a lot of nettles and all sorts. So we spent a lot of time clearing it, and then we 18 months ago we planted snake's head fritillaries, and they have flowered over 2 years. We haven't got very many, but they're surviving there well. The other one we want to introduce is this another iconic species is the great burnet, which is a typical plant of floodplain meadows. So we've sown lots of seeds. I think we've sown about seeds of about 14 different species in there. So another inhabitant of Barton Fields, grass snakes, and we've got lots of those, and some of them grow up to 110 centimeters. Some of the females are quite massive. We have lots of reptile mats scattered around the site, and my colleague Graham goes around counting the snakes every week during the summer. They benefit from two things. One is our ponds, because they love to swim in the ponds and catch amphibians, frogs and toads and so forth. And also we make piles of hay when we mow the area, which rots down like a compost heap, and the snakes get in there and lay their eggs. So we quite often find young grass snakes near these compost heaps. And this is one of the slow worms which we introduced. And they were introduced, we had 2 lots in 2018 and 2019. And we've recorded young slow worms in the last 2 years. So we know that they've colonized the area successfully. So we also host both school parties, and this was when we had an open day in 2017. We had a stall in the marketplace, and people signed up to visit Barton Fields, and they did some pond dipping and various other activities. This was another pond dip we had. This was the beavers, and they were very interested in what had been caught from one of the ponds. We've also had school groups. I think we had 70 children on one occasion. And this is one of the creatures they've been looking at. This is a great diving beetle larva, and you can see his massive pincers here, which he perforates his prey and devours it. And there's the parent. This is the great diving beetle, and I think they're about 30 millimeters long, so very large beetle. I mean, they're quite common in the ponds. So I'll go on to the next area, which is Bruni Lagoon. It's an inlet of the Thames. It used to be a channel, separate channel of the Thames, and it's this area outlined in purple. It was created as a local wildlife site before I think in the 1990s. And the reason, well, I'll go on to explain why it was created wildlife site. This is the Bruni Lagoon. Early one morning when I was doing a bird survey for BTO, there's lots of different warblers and other birds in here. It was rather nice with the mist rising from the water. And this is the reason that the Bruni Lagoon was made a local wildlife site. It was Chetty's warbler, and that's a recent colonizer to the UK. And unlike most other warblers, it overwinters in the UK. They started breeding in Bruni Lagoon, or not in the lagoon, but in the shrubbery around the lagoon in the 1990s. Another notable insect from this area is the variable damselfly, which is a near threatened species in the UK, and it breeds in and around Bruni Lagoon. So the next site I'm going to look at is Orchard Lake, and that's a shallow lake. I think it was originally excavated by the gravel people, and then for whatever reason, that they scalped the surface, and then they decided not to excavate the gravel. So it is now a very shallow lake, but that makes it ideal for lots of creatures. And you can see in this drone picture that you can see the bottom quite clearly. So it's quite a complex shape, and it's lined by reeds all the way around, and it's a super area for wildlife and pond dipping. And we see here we had Abingdon Naturalists organised pond dips there for several years, and this was one of them. And you can see it's very shallow, and you get stands of yellow flag iris in there. And this is Jeremy Biggs, who's the leader of the Freshwater Habitats Trust, who helped us in identifying the creatures that the children had collected. This was another occasion. We were in a slightly different area of Orchard Lake, and I think one of the little girls got really keen on these swan mussels, which are quite large bivalves, and she kept on pulling these out of the lake and putting them in this large tray. But we had loads of other creatures in there as well. And this is another shot of pond dipping in Orchard Lake, and these are a couple of the creatures. This is the water scorpion here, which looks quite vicious. I think it probably is. And this is the water stick insect. Now, just south of Orchard Lake is some rather nice woodland. And in that woodland, there's some pools which are connected by a small stream. And a few years ago, there was this fantastic show of water violets, which are a vulnerable species in the UK. And I think the only other site where you find them is on Otmore in Oxfordshire. They occurred just for 2 or 3 years, and this was after the trees on the south of these pools had been cleared, so there was more light let into these pools. It was a fantastic sight. Oops. And in another plant that you find in these woods is the Loddon lily. There's just a few clumps of them, but they're gradually increasing. There is another site nearby, which is a triple SI, where there are literally thousands, but they're becoming established south of Orchard Lake. Right, we're coming to Thrupp Lake, which is the big lake. Sometimes see kingfishers here, and Mark Chivers caught this one very nicely. Thrupp Lake is managed by the Earth Trust. It's I think it's about 10 or 12 hectares in area. It has one of the main things about it is that it has lots of islands, and these are ideal for birds, nesting birds. But there are not enough islands, so the Earth Trust have created these rafts, turn rafts, which they tow out every year. I think this is a recent photograph. They were towing these out last month, I think. There's Caroline there rowing away. And yes, so these are for common terns, which nest in the gravel or sometimes I think these little boxes are for the young to hide in if predators, things like crows and buzzards and things fly over. So and they're used every year, these turn rafts. They've also provided this sand martin nest box, which is a big nest box, and as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, probably about 48 holes for the sand martins. The box is filled with sand, and they have tubes which go into the box, and then there's the nesting site is at the top of right inside the box at the top of the tube. And this is the Earth Trust volunteers setting up the sand martin box, and they've installed a loudspeaker which plays sand martin calls. So this will hopefully attract the sand martins. I don't think any have nested there yet, but I think we're quite hopeful that they will. They already nest in Tuckwell's works, which is not far away. The other things around Thrupp Lake, on the isthmus between Thrupp Lake and Bullfield Lake, you find these southern marsh orchids. And some of them, well, in the past, they grew to enormous height. I measured one once, which was just under 1 meter in height. And I think it was possibly a hybrid. It's obviously had hybrid vigor, but there's still a few of them there, but they don't grow so large as they used to. And on the west side of Thrupp Lake are white hellebore, which is another orchid. They grow mainly under beech trees, but some of them grow in less shady positions. So there's quite, again, I counted up to 200 there, and they seem to be on the increase, and they are, I think, again, a threatened species, or near threatened. This one used to grow. This is the tway blade, another orchid with greenish flowers. It used to grow in small patches of grassland, but that's been scrub. You know, the scrubbers moved in, encroached on the grassland, and I don't think they're there anymore. Anyway, I think I'll break at this point, and if we maybe if you have any questions, we could spend about 10 minutes answering questions before I go on to the last few slides. Is that okay, Anne?
Yeah, that's good. I'll just stop your screen sharing so we can see everyone.
Okay.
If anyone's got a question, please go ahead.
I have a question. I noticed the Tern Islands seem to have fences around. I wonder why.
I think that's to prevent predators, probably mainly otters, from getting in and predating the eggs and young. There's also black-headed gulls that nest nearby, and they get they're quite aggressive if any predator comes nearby, you know, such as a buzzard or a crow, and they will soon chase them off. So it's an advantage for the terns to have the black-headed gulls nesting on the islands.
Any other questions? Michael?
Yeah, you haven't said much about the waterfowl. On recent visits, there seem to be fewer than I remembered in previous years. Is that in fact the case? And how about
I don't
the variety
know.
of species?
I've not said much about the waterfowl because basically I don't know. Ben Carpenter does frequent surveys in the area, and I think he knows more than I do. Yes, I think possibly they've declined because there's so many walkers going round the edge. The birds that used to hide along, particularly along the northern edge, are no longer there. There used to be lots of teal that used to hide in that area. So yeah, but it's a bit of a honeypot, really. That's why we want to keep other areas sort of not so much frequented, particularly by dogs, which are sort of a deterrent, particularly to ground nesting birds.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So not a question, but a comment. I went down and sat on that bench by Thrupp Lake last night with a bat detector for about half an hour. And in that short time, I detected 4 different kinds of bat.
Wow, that's good.
Two kinds of pipistrelle, some noctules, and the other was a myotis of some kind. I don't know what kind.
Oh, that's
but
great.
There's a lot going on.
Yes, there's lots of. I think the pygmy pipistrelle sort of hunt certainly are on the edge of the lake, and I think we did a bat walk one evening, and it was just about getting dark. You know, it was twilight, and there was dozens of these pygmy pipistrelles flying along the border of the lake, and then a hobby swooped through. It was obviously, you know, it's a real surprise to see it at that time of night. But yeah, they obviously hunt the pipistrelles at twilight.
Any other comments, questions? No. Well, David, if you want to
Okay, I'll share my screen again. Yes, that's it. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the gravel pits were filled with fly ash. The fly ash was made into a slurry with water, which was pumped along a pipeline from Didcot Power Station to Radley Lakes. And in phase one, I think it was from the 1980s to about 1999, the pits, the gravel pits east of the railway line were filled, and these were not lined, so the groundwater was in these pits was connected to the surrounding land. In phase two, which was sort of roughly 2000 to 2005, the gravel pits west of the main railway line were lined with clay. So they were lined with about a meter of clay. And so the groundwater level in the pits was isolated from the surrounding groundwater. But the pits rewilded very quickly, and early colonizers were three members of the Gentian family. This is the lesser century, which is quite rare in Oxfordshire. Common century, which is common in Oxfordshire, and this yellowwort, which in fact is a downland species, so not usually found in this area. But I think what they've all got in common is that they have very fine dust-like seeds. So these carry easily on the wind. So it enabled them to colonize the area very quickly. And yes, thank you, Michael, for this photo, which is of marsh orchids, again, growing on the fly ash. The Earth Trust looked after two of the fly ash pits over for a number of years, and they cut a number of rides or glades through the scrubby areas, so it developed into grassland where these marsh orchids grew very well. And as you can see, they were in quite dense colonies. The fly ash is not uniformly dry. It slopes slightly towards the river, so that there are wetter areas, and in the lower areas you get low-lying areas. You've got various marsh loving plants, notably marsh pennywort, this marsh dock, and this orchid, marsh helleborine, which again is a scarce orchid in Oxfordshire. Thrupp Green was one of the ash pits which were rewilded, and on the east side of Thrupp Green is this residual shallow lake, which attracts waterfowl, and beside the lake there's a marshy area which the Earth Trust used to scythe, and since last year, the Radley Lakes Trust have taken over managing this area. And this was the first day, this was last September, and we had a number of scythers and rakers, and the area to be scythed is on the left here, and this is the scrubby area. This was them making a start. I think we had about 7 or 8 scythers on that day, and I think there was a good number, because we had the green gym on that day, so I think there was about 25 of us altogether, and you need at least as many rakers as you do scythers. And then we are still going. I think that was on the same day, but we cleared quite an area on that day. And this was on the third day. We had 3 scything sessions there, and by that time we'd cleared about a hectare of the site. Of course, we rake off the hay and stack it, and again, that provides habitat for things like snakes. But the main reason for clearing this area is because lapwing nest there, and they've been nesting again this year. I think 2 pairs have nested in this area, and there's several more pairs nested in another of the fly ash pits. So that ends my sort of tour of the site. I just want to talk some about the species diversity of the site. And it is an important site in Oxfordshire for many scarce and threatened species. Abingdon Naturalists did I think 3 years we did surveys of the fly ash pits and the surrounding tracks, which are on the top of the clay buns. And in that area, there's a roughly 300, we identified 300 species, 15 of which are listed on the Oxfordshire Rare Plants Register, and 8 are red listed nationally. Birds, Ben Carpenter has been studying them very thoroughly for the last 12 years, and he's recorded 152 species. But it's been a important site for birds for many years, and in the 1980s, Oxford Ornithological did a breeding bird survey, and it turned out to be the top site in Oxfordshire with 83 breeding bird species. It's also a very important site for dragonflies, with 24 resident species and 2 migrant species which have been recorded on a few occasions. And that turns out to be about 65% of the English list of breeding species. Bees and wasps, it's a very good site. Again, particularly the fly ash pits, because of the floral diversity there, and the fact that the bees some bees are mining bees, so they can burrow into the fly ash. So they really like the site. And Ivan Wright is the guy who's done most of the work on the bees, and he's recorded a lot of scarce species there. Oops. Moths, a guy called Bob Eales had a moth trap over about a decade in the Radley Lakes area and recorded over 700 species. Abingdon Naturalists, we organise a couple of butterfly transects in the area, and the Earth Trust also do a transect, and there's 27 species that I know of that have been recorded. Lots of people, it's a well recorded area. Lots of people have done records. I won't go through all of them, but as you can see, we've got lots of records of both the invertebrates, vertebrates, mammals, birds, a lot. Just to home in on the dragonflies, I've divided it into 3 different sites. One is Bruni Lagoon and Barton Fields. The other is Orchard Lake and surrounding areas, and the other is Thrupp Lake and Bullfield Lake. And we see that we've recorded around 20 different species have been recorded in each area. 2 of these, the variable damselfly and the common clubtail, are rare and near threatened species, and the lesser emperor and the red-veined darter are rare migrant species. And these are some of some of the dragonflies. Broad-bodied chaser, so rather nice. It likes, if you dig a new pond, it will be in there in no time at all. It loves newly created ponds. This one, 4-spotted chaser, quite often see it around Orchard Lake, but also in Bruni Lagoon. It likes, I think, larger water bodies. And of course, this clubtail dragonfly, again, near threatened species. The larvae live out their life cycles in the Thames. And when they emerge, which is about this time of year, in fact, this picture was taken by Martin Wagner last week, and when they emerge, they frequent the woodland surrounding the Radley Lake area. Bees and wasps, as I said, Ivan Wright has done surveys. This is a mining bee, one of the mining bees, which is quite a scarce one. And this one here is a new record for the UK. Ivan Wright, and I think it was recorded somewhere in Kent at the same time. So it has moved into the UK, and this one of the fly ash pits was the first area where it was recorded. Some nice wasps. Again, these are quite scarce wasps. Not much I can say about them. I don't know too much about their life cycle. Anyway, this is coming towards the end now. This is basically our wish lists. Well, I think we need to continue to enhance the fly ash pits by clearing more of the scrub, so that we've got more area for herbs and grassland species, and also for birds. The reed beds are in fact extending quite well, particularly in the fly ash pits. So I think we'll have some quite big, large areas of reed bed. Where we can, we've already started in Barton Fields that create floodplain meadows, enhance the flora of grassland by mowing and removing the hay. But also we've got a few invasive plant species, such as the New Zealand pygmy weed, which is a sort of amphibious plant. It grows both in water and on marshy land, so that's one we need to tackle. Himalayan balsam, we've tackled it quite well in Barton Fields and in the willow car. So I think we've virtually overcome that in that area, but there are still a few areas in the wider Barton Field, wider Radley Lakes area. And also we need to record the flora and fauna to see how what the effects of management are. So we've already got the master plan. We need permissions from landowners, and we're getting there. I mean, we've done lots of work in Thrupp Green, which is one of the fly ash pits. We need to extend that to other areas. We need revenue for the ongoing management, plus grants for projects. We need a large band of volunteers. So we had the nucleus of the Barton Fields Green team, plus the Abingdon Green Gym. We've now formed a group of volunteers from Radley, the Radley Trust volunteers. So we're getting there with regard to volunteers, but we need more. We also need guidance from people like the Freshwater Habitats Trust, Wild Oxfordshire, TVERC, RSPB, etc. Right, so two ground nesting and red listed species which presently breed on the fly ash pits, the lapwing, which I've already talked about. So we're trying to do what we can for them. And also the skylark, which breeds in the sort of drier areas of the fly ash pits. I think it's important to continue to enclose the fly ash areas, because the continuation of breeding of species like lapwing and skylark depend on them not to be being disturbed, particularly by dogs. This was a lapwing nest which I photographed when we were in an early visit, when we were doing botanical surveys. These are two species which I would like to see. This one used to breed on the fly ash pits east of the railway line, but I think it's disappeared from there now. But maybe it could be encouraged to breed again. And also grey partridge, which is again a red listed species. But I think that we've got the right sort of habitat where it might breed. I've talked about floodplain meadows and the fritillaries and great burnet and other species. So I don't think so. Other species that might be attracted, I don't think the bittern would. Sometimes it's recorded in winter in the Radley Lakes area. So I think we could, with the extension of reed beds, that could be encouraged to return more in winter, though I doubt that there's sufficient reed bed for it to breed. The other bird, rather nice bird, is the bearded tits, which visited in 2014 with the increased reed bed. That could be one to colonize the area. But this little damselfly, it has been spreading across England from the east coast, and we predicted in 2018 that it might come into the area, and it in fact turned up in Orchard Lake in 2020. So I'd like to thank all the various volunteers, Barton Fields, Green Team, Green Gym, and all the other groups who have helped us, and also funding from the various organisations, the councils, Radley Lakes Trust, and so forth, and also the people who have helped with surveying the area, such as Shotover Wildlife, who did the bee and wasp surveys. So if you'd like to get involved, just contact us either through the website or Richard Dudding or myself, to let us know how you can, and you can follow us on on our website, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I hope you will enjoy the lakes, and with your support they will thrive, we hope. Oops. So I could open it to questions if anyone wants to ask any further questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I think you've answered everyone's questions already. Oh, one from Michael.
Yes, is there the evidence that toxins from the fly ash is affecting the wildlife in the in those lakes that are being refurbished and made
Right.
good again?
I don't have any evidence. I mean, I don't discount it, but they have had 15 years in which the rainwater has flushed through, and they've now made a gap in the bunds which surround the lakes for the water to flush out of the area. So I think in the early days there was you know, there was some indication that a lot of the plants were suffering somehow from excess, probably toxins in the fly ash, but I don't see that now. It's particularly in Thrupp Green. You know, everything looks to be growing very well, as far as I know. I think there are newts breeding in the ponds in there are various ponds in Thrupp Green, and newts are breeding in there. Fish are in that lake on the east side of Thrupp Green. There are fish in there. So I think things are improving all the time.
It has affected things like water violet, hasn't it? The leaching from the lakes.
Sorry, the water violet.
The water violets near Orchard Lake. You don't get them there anymore, do you?
Well, they were never in Orchard Lake, as
Sorry,
far as I
that
know.
area, south.
They were in the ponds to the south. There are still a few there.
Oh.
I don't think they're not as common as they were. I think it's possibly due to shading. There was a great abundance of them in sort of I think it was possibly when the lakes were being filled, but the lakes are lined with 1 meter of Kimmeridge clay, so I don't think much will get out. So I think that the absence of the water violets, I mean, there's still a few there. They're still surviving there, and they're in Barton Fields as well. There were quite a few last year in Barton Fields, in the stream there, which is in fact connected to the that same stream that flows through the woodland.
Thank you.
We've got a question in the comments. Someone's asking if the deer are an asset or a hindrance to the plans.
Right, deer. In Barton Fields, the muntjac tend to eat various plants that we've put in, but they're not a great hazard. There's in the sort of the western side, Barton Fields and around there, we get mainly muntjac. Further east, we get roe deer. I've not seen any evidence of damage to plants. Sorry. I don't think they're a problem, really. I don't think there's enough of them to be a problem. And you do need some grazing animals. In fact, it would be good to introduce cattle or something onto some of the fly ash pits.
Any more questions for David? Comments? I don't see any. Just a lot of thank yous in the chat. So thank you very much, David. I think
Thank you.
People didn't expect so much biodiversity on our doorstep. So I think a lot of people are going to head over there for a walk
Right.
sometime soon.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us, all that knowledge. It's fascinating. We will share the recording on our website, One Planet Abingdon, and our YouTube channel. We will email the link to everyone who'd registered for the event, so you can rewatch or share this with your friends. And yeah, do follow the Radley Lakes activities online and One Planet Abingdon. And thank you very much, David. Again, thanks everyone for joining, and we hope to see you at another event soon. Thank you, everyone.